evening, everyone. Welcome to the American Sports Connection. I'm your host, the one and only Joey Railroads. I'm back with my buddy Adam. Adam, how are you doing, sir?
Doing good, buddy. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, trying to get used to this dreary weather from Hurricane Jose.
Don't worry about it. Matches the color of your soul.
Yeah, there you go. Now, before we get started, I have to plug some stuff. You can find us on social media at facebook.com/American Sports Connection or on Twitter at AM Sports Con, C-O-N, Pod, P-O-D. Please check out our sponsor also, the Squared Circle Magazine. Over on Twitter, you can find them at TSC Wrestling Mag, M-A-G. You can use promo code ASCPOD for 20% off your next order. So that sounds like fun.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. Could you repeat all that, please? Go ahead.
That's funny. Now, what did you think of week 2 in the NFL this week?
Well, I think we're starting to see, it's only 2 games, but I think we're starting to see a few pretenders emerging, maybe a few teams that are going to be sort of buried in struggles. But I think it was a pretty fun week of football.
No, I'd agree with that for the most part. So let's get into it. We had the Thursday night barn burner with Houston hanging on to beat the Bengals 13-9.
Yes, watching those offenses try to move the ball made me want to go set barns on fire. So I was extremely bored with those offenses. But you could say that the defenses played really well, which they did, right? I mean, I guess the play of the night was Deshaun's touchdown scramble. But I don't know, man. I just think the real story here is just the debacle that is the Bengals organization right now.
Well,
what do you think?
Yeah, well, they let the I can't remember his name. I want to say it's Whitworth.
Yeah, that one really good lineman, yeah.
Yeah, he left. And you can really see like the difference on their offensive line.
Yeah, both of those offensive lines are pretty bad.
And I mean, no disrespect to Andy Dalton, but he's not a superstar, I guess you would say. So you're going to hear a lot of clamoring for A.J. McCarron or them to find someone, or basically the heat's getting turned up.
Yeah, I mean, even though, I don't like the Bengals, obviously, but I've tried to be objective about Dalton, so I've come up with this conclusion, which he's not, he can be an NFL quarterback somewhere. He's not the franchise quarterback that they drafted him to be.
I thought they knew this, and this is just my personal opinion. They've known this at least 2 or 3 years ago, and this was. We're going to stick with him and try to make a square peg fit into a round hole.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's supposed to be all these coaches and coordinators and scouts and people watching. I mean, if it's obvious to us, why don't they understand it? But having said that, I mean, it's almost because it's like the Bengals are just too talented to be this bad. I mean, you've got Dalton, you've got A.J. Green, you got Giovanni Bernard, you've got, Atkins, who's, still one of the better defensive tackles. And they got some talent on defense. So the question is, why are they this bad? Why did they just go 2 home games without scoring a touchdown? Why is Marvin not being held accountable for this? You know, what's it going to take for them to move on from him?
I know.
I think that's the real story here.
Yeah. Here's a good one for you. Lance in our chat said, bring in Kaepernick.
Yeah. At this point, I mean,
it can't be any worse.
It couldn't. Yeah, I mean, just when you think it couldn't get any more absurd, I mean, I almost, would be willing to try something like that only because, with Kaepernick, you at least would erase the absurdist expectations that this organization continues to have with Andy Dalton. Like, at least if you downgraded the quarterback position, you could say, okay, forget this ridiculous idea that we have a franchise quarterback. Let's just try to win some games. Let's just try to become a 10-win team. Which we're good enough.
Just going 8-8 is going to be like an accomplishment.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, you come out of the gate, you lose two, in my opinion, very winnable home games, and you're in a pretty bloodbathy division there. And I mean, you've got an offense that's scratching its head right now. Why are we so bad? Oh, I forgot about the Eiffel Tower. Yeah. You got one of the best tight ends too. So why is this happening? So, I mean, as hurtful as it would be, I mean, Lance's point plays to something that at least if you just chop down those expectations at the knees and just got rid of it, at least you could just kind of inject some realism into the situation and say, okay, let's just go out and win some games. Let's execute.
Yeah.
Let's get back to fundamentals. But it just kind of feels like as long as Dalton's there, the organization's going to be under this cloud of illusion. Like, oh, we've got a championship caliber team. We just need to ? What do we need to do?
Yeah, I agree. All right. Next, we have the Ravens beating up on the Browns 24-10.
Yeah, I think we've been talking about the North a lot. We always do because we like how they, draw blood. Yeah, and I kind of mentioned to you that they were one of my teams that I kind of thought could be a little bit surprising this year, and I think they're sticking to this formula. Obviously, the Browns are, a reclamation project, and I like the fact that they appear to be playing really hard. But I don't think that they're going to, win a whole heck of a lot of games. I think the real thing that I'm looking for right now is how is Flacco going to play, and how is their secondary going to look, because their secondary was so bad, and I kept telling myself, well, it can't be that bad again, can it? Now, what do you know about the Cleveland quarterback's injury?
I know he left the game because he had migraines.
Yeah, and for those of you that think that's kind of funny, if you've ever had the full migraine syndrome, it's more than just a headache. It's really pretty awful. It's kind of like
you have vertigo.
Yeah, and you see flashing lights, and you get dizzy, and you vomit, and all kind of terrible stuff happens. So
apparently, he's had this in his career.
So
that's a shame. Hoping he doesn't turn into like a Percy Harvin.
Yeah, you mentioned Harvin. Some guys get through a career with him. Like I know Kareem Abdul-Jabbar dealt with him throughout his career. He had a great career.
Interesting.
But I hope he's able to work through that. Maybe, it's a lot of it. I mean, my mom had him, so I know my brother has. Everybody in our family has him because we have them on both sides of the family. So a lot of it has to do with getting the right medicine for you and, avoiding certain foods and stuff. But, hopefully he gets around that. But
I'm just curious to see how the Ravens look, and no knock to them against like legitimate competition.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's what I'm kind of excited for. I want to see them play, Pittsburgh or New England or somebody like that. And I don't know if you've taken a look at their schedule, but I'm sure they've got some, somebody, from the AFC that's a little stiffer coming up. And that's what I want to really see, too, is how they hold up against some true AFC, foes.
They play the Steelers and the Raiders in the coming weeks.
Oh, so there you go. I mean, there's your litmus test. let's see how they do against those teams, and we'll talk.
That's very true, Lance. Lance says the migraines always come at the worst time, too.
Yeah, Lance, and unlike what a lot of people think, you can't always feel them coming. Some people say they get like little white lights or little stuff like that, or little sensation in the back of their head, but sometimes it's just like boom, like getting hit with a sledgehammer. So yeah, and sometimes a little anxiety, a little pregame anxiety, something like that, get your blood flowing. Sometimes that'll set them off, and yeah, they do seem to come at the most inconvenient times. I agree. It's a good point.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have Tampa Bay demolishing the Chicago Bears in their opener, 29-7.
Yeah, no surprise here. We talked about this, and we both agree that the Bears are going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year.
I almost feel bad because they're just getting like their doors blown off.
Well, I mean, you just knew, Tampa Bay was going to be angry because they kind of had a bye forced on them. And they've got that explosive offense now. I was going to say,
and I think we both agree that they're a team on the upswing.
Definitely. And the defense is getting better. The offense is explosive. The Bears, in addition to just having not a very talented roster, they're constantly going through this cycle of change, and they have a lot of injuries now. And, their two most interesting players are probably those two running backs, but what good does that do you when you're constantly playing from behind, when you're constantly getting your ass kicked?
Yeah.
Which is probably what most of this year is going to be like. Like that Atlanta game last week, that's a game that the Bears desperately need to go out and find a way to win, because those are going to be the diamonds in the rough,
No, I completely agree with you.
That's not going to, I don't see that happening to them. They're not going to be in that situation. They need to find a way. So I feel bad for them, but what a homecoming for your buddy, John Mike Glennon. I'm imagine all the interceptions.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it's a shame. I feel bad for Bears fans.
Well, I was going to say that, and I feel bad because they're going to really start calling for Trubisky to get in there, and that's going to do him no favors.
Yeah, well, they're going to start calling, because who else is it's him, the butt fumble, and Glennon. So yeah, they're going to call for Trubisky, and yeesh, oh boy, ouch.
Yeah, I agree. All right, moving on.
We'll see how confident he really is.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Yep.
Moving on, we have Dean, who just popped in. His Steelers beating up on the Vikings 26-9.
Yeah, it's a solid win for the Steelers. I was impressed that they manhandled the Vikings, without their primary offensive weapons, none of them really having a beautiful game. I mean, Bell didn't have a particularly good game. Brown didn't have a great game. Ben didn't have a great game. And granted, who was playing quarterback? Case Keenum?
Yeah.
Hey, granted, it was Case Keenum, but I like the way they handled their business and, kept the Vikings down by a couple scores for the entire game.
Yeah,
Never really gave them
length.
Never really gave him too much of a glimmer of, no illusions about having any chance to win. So despite the fact that the offensive weaponry wasn't too sharp, and I'm sad to say, I think that Watts brother got hurt again.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, and but I think that signing Hayden off the Browns is paying dividends. I think he defends a couple passes, and I don't know. I think they might have, especially given developing stories, they might have parted ways with Timmons at the right time.
Yeah,
so
we'll get into that.
Yeah, but that game definitely would have been a lot more fun if Bradford had been in the game, because say what you say about Bradford, he definitely would have been, airing it out a little bit more, and they would have been making some more plays down the field against that Steelers secondary.
Yeah, because they're trying to rebuild it, but that's still their weak spot.
Still a work in progress, my friend.
Right. Next, we have the Patriots going with a win over the Saints, 36-20.
Yeah, we all knew that nobody wanted to be the next team to play Brady and Belichick after what happened opening week. We were talking about that, and Brady had like this pristine performance where he like threw, what was it, like 47 passes without an interception.
Yeah.
Which is impressive. I don't care what the other team's defensive is like. That's always very impressive. So yeah, the Saints defense, I mean, is in a state of flux. You were mentioning that they traded another linebacker, and that Vaccaro wants out. So I think the States are in the on the verge of collapse. But I think we all knew that the Patriots were going to bounce back with a very strong performance. I mean, the Saints played hard. They didn't exactly roll over. That was a competitive game pretty much throughout, I guess. The problem is that Adrian Peterson's a horrible fit. Their offense looks out of sync. I don't know that guys like Ted Ginn really fit in that well with them. I know Peterson doesn't. And your buddy Snead being suspended, that hurts them. The Saints just look like a team that's not even going to be really ready to play for another month or so. I think they're like totally missing the bus here. What have you seen them play at all? What did you think about them?
They just look like you said, they look just flat.
They look out of sorts. And I've never seen, you could say, oh, they got so many new players and stuff, but I've never seen Drew Brees look so out of sorts. He looks completely uncomfortable. This is the
interesting thing to me. The Patriots normally would have really tattooed a team if they were like that. They really didn't in this game. I kind of threw that line in the water when I mentioned that the Saints kind of hung around, and that given that bad defense there, you would have expected maybe a wider score gap, maybe something like, 48-14 or, something like Gronk,
that.
Was taken out of the game. He has like a groin injury, but he could have played through it if the game was closer. And then there was someone else got hurt, like, because they just had a bunch of receivers in they were working out.
Yeah, well, I still have concerns about, with no Hightower, how they're going to cover guys down the seams, and that's going to continue to be exploited unless they constantly play 5 or 6 defensive backs. Then you're going to be able to run on them, it would seem. But
no, I agree.
It's going to be interesting to see how Belichick and his defensive coordinator respond to that need.
Right. All right. Next, we have the Chiefs beating the Eagles in Arrowhead, 27-20.
Yeah, I guess, our job in regard to the game is to kind of quell the riots.
What is it? If you're not from this area, Howard Eskin, who's always on the radio, he's a radio personality here, says, "Go buy a puppy."
Yeah, take your pitchforks home. That's farming equipment. That's not for riding.
I tried to listen to some of Sports Talk Radio here after I took you home, and the next day, and it was just it was unbearable to listen to.
Yeah, just to give some of you guys an idea who don't listen to Philly sports radio.
Yes? I think his Skype went. It's Philly Sports Talk Radio is just the worst of the worst, where they want to get out the pitchfork and knives for the littlest thing. And I will say this, though. I think the coach for the Eagles, Doug Peterson, is not going to eventually work out. And it might just be me, because he's Andy Reid clone in a lot of ways. Oh, here comes Adam. Hang on, everybody. Welcome back.
I guess we're okay now. Sorry, I have no idea what happened.
That's okay. Go ahead and finish your thought about Sports Talk Radio.
Yeah, it's just, we had people calling for the benching of Wentz, the releasing of the offensive coordinator. This is the kind of nonsense we have to deal with this in this area. And I know you had a point to make about kind of like in defense of the young quarterback. If, you want to go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
I'll mention it real quick and we'll get into the game. Because people are like, oh, well, he's thrown X amount of picks in X amount of games. Well, a lot of these have been tip balls because you've seen them. We've both seen them. The pick that he had on Sunday was a tipped ball on, in my opinion, a terrible play call. The reason being is when they ran this play, Adam, I think they had called about 5 or 6, maybe more screen calls at this time.
Yeah, especially those middle screens where you're like throwing the ball into the most trafficked area of the field, where literally the guts of the whole defense is there, and you're just begging for something bad to happen. Right. And it happened. I mean, yeah, and you're right.
The game really was the 2 turnovers and a missed field goal. The Eagles played far better than I thought they would going into Kansas City against a team that is probably one of the top 6 teams in the AFC right now.
Yeah, I mean, they went on the road and lost by a touchdown to a much better football team. I mean, what is the big problem? And their young quarterback made some excellent throws on the run and in the pocket. And, he did. He has to take that responsibility for that turnover, and he does drop the ball too much. But, you have to weigh the upside against, the mistakes of a young man's inexperience.
No,
and you have to look at some of the bright side. I mean, their offensive line performed much, much better than I would think anybody would have expected against that Chiefs pass rush. You saw the emergence of Alshon Jeffrey, which is a very good thing.
I want to bring this up real quick about that game, and we'll move on. I don't know if the people that are listening saw this. It was and guys are going to try and duplicate this around the league. When the Eagles scored a late touchdown to bring it within 1 score, they went for an onside kick. I think it was the tight end Trey Burton. He tapped the ball in the air basically to himself and then fell on it. I was like, I've never seen anybody do that.
Yeah, see, that's why they on onside kickoffs they have like that 2 tiers on the recovery side, because the first line is to hit everybody from the kicking team, and the second tier is like the actual hand guys who are going to recover it. But I think he was probably I believe he was several yards off the line of scrimmage, and he must have gotten a flying start, and he just kind of tipped the ball to himself, kind of like a guy playing the post in basketball, tipping the rebound to himself. And if he kept his balance, he's allowed to go as far as he possibly can. You imagine if he had gotten a touchdown.
Oh. Like Lance just said, they almost came back and won. They were basically one play away.
Yes,
so I really can't be mad at them.
And that's why, even after they blew it with the turnover, when they had the ball with 6 minutes left, they had the ball, I think, with like 3.5 minutes left. I said, just play the 2-minute offense and see what happens, because A, you never know, and B, this is some good real-time experience for future games when it when it may really matter. So, yeah, and it did end up being a matter of 30 or so yards away from pay dirt.
Right. All right. Next, we have the Titans bringing the Jaguars back down to earth, 37-16.
Yes, as I mentioned to you, I think it was around 3:00 Eastern on the Sunday. Little will be known to most of the world. The Titans and Jaguars are playing a football game right now. And what I think happened was it's just Blake Bortles, you know. We talked about it last week. How long can Blake Bortles not screw up? And he had 3 turnovers in that game.
What did you say? You told me he was making up for lost time.
Yes, he was apologetic for his lack of turnovers in week 1 and wanted to, do penance for that.
3 in total, maybe 4.
I know for a fact he had 2 picks and a lost fumble. If he had more than that, it might have been after when I checked on him. But yeah, I know for a fact that he had 3. And again, Blake Bortles puts that team in a terrible, terrible hole. And, at that point, having a really good front 4 just doesn't matter that much because you're down a couple touchdowns. And it's a shame because in the long run, Blake Bortles is not going to be the starting quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars or for any NFL team. So I kind of feel bad for everybody that's playing their butts off, really trying to make something of that farce in Jacksonville because Blake Bortles is not going to pan out.
No, he's going to flame out, unfortunately. And Tennessee comes back with a vengeance, after a tough loss to Oakland in opening week.
Yeah, that was a tough one, and they did bounce back. And what I noticed was that this is interesting was Derrick Henry actually was the leading rusher.
Huh.
Not the fellow that went from Dallas to you guys to them. His name escapes me for some reason. Murray, right. Yeah, Henry actually had 92 yards rushing, which I thought, that's kind of interesting. Well, you wonder how the dynamic in that running game might shift, but that might be kind of exciting for Mariota to not have 1 but 2, quality running backs at his disposal. Because I noticed that, the passing game was not super productive, but Henry got 92 yards. Wow. Okay. Well, how is that dynamic in the running game going to shift? So yeah, Titans kind of bounce back and Jacksonville kind of shows what they're really about. There's no real surprise there. Blake Bortles is not a good quarterback. It's not an NFL quarterback.
Said that Murray was hurt and sat out the second half.
Okay, well, thank you, Lance. So apparently Henry comes in and got that 92 yards on only 14 carries, which is extremely productive. It's about 6.5 a carry, I believe. So I don't know. I guess if it's injury based, Murray will come back at some point and get his starting job back. But that was an impressive performance by Henry. He's the Alabama kid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's who it is. All right. Next we have one of the 2 clunkers of the week, the Cardinals beating the Colts 16-13 in overtime.
Yeah, the only thing that was really interesting about this game for me was you just wanted those poor sappy Colts to hold on and beat the Cardinals. Especially the way they got their butts kicked last week.
Yeah, I kind of was just like, because, they got, no shot without Andrew Luck.
Yeah, just hold on, man. You can do it. Just get this one win, especially against the Cardinals, who everybody has, gotten out the horn and the anointing oil and has them go representing the NFC in the Super Bowl,
Well, not so much now with David Johnson not there.
Not so much now, but you still like to see the chair kicked out from under him a little bit. At least I do. I know you'd love it. You have very personal reasons to love it.
Oh yeah.
But I saw that Arizona's passing game was not getting good productivity at all, and the Colts were just they were ahead 13-3. I was like, come on, man, you could do this. But, the Colts and, the poor Colts, that kid Brissett was in there, did not throw a pick the whole game. First drive of overtime, first throw, splat, picked off, and I was like, oh, damn it.
That sucks.
I was like, the Cardinals do not deserve to win this game. But, that's one of those games where you play crappy, but you just try to hang around and make a play at the end of the game. And the Cardinals defense did that for them.
Yeah, they made one play, and that was it, because their kicker missed the game-winning field goal in regulation.
Catanzaro, right?
No, it's somebody else now.
Oh, that's right, because Catanzaro went elsewhere, didn't he?
Yeah.
It
was an older guy.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I can't remember his name off the top of him, but either way,
can't keep track of these damn kickers anymore. Yeah.
The guy missed the game winner in regulation, but then redeems himself in overtime.
Gotcha. Okay, well, yeah, I felt bad because that may have been the Colts' best chance to get a win without Andrew Luck.
All right, next we have the other one that was kind of a clunker. Carolina besting the Bills 9-3.
Yes, but you did miss another clunker, which we'll get to. I know you'll find it. But yes, this was a clunker as well. And you remember when we were talking this game last week, and we talked about this game, and we said, the Bills will just kind of do something stupid offensively and not come up with enough points to beat Carolina.
Yep.
But my real curiosity here is, where will the Carolina Panthers kind of emerge out of all this? We know that their defense is pretty sound, okay?
Yeah.
But my question is, what is Cam Newton going to get? We know he lost the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They had a bad year last year. Now, they still have Stewart. They still have those. God, that Benjamin. I've never seen a wide receiver so damn huge in my life. He looks like, like we play Madden and you have the giant guy, how much bigger he is than all the other players.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? When you have the giant player on Madden and he's like twice the size of all the other, or you have the midget and he's half the size of the other guys. He's got these fine weapons, and it just makes me wonder, is Cam Newton a little bit not competitively right in the head? I mean, I don't want to cast aspersions on the guys, but I kind of have this feeling like Cam Newton is not quite calibrated competitively, if you know what I mean. Yeah. I'm just not sure if he's geared to steer a championship team. I don't know. Something about him, he doesn't click. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and then them losing Olsen, they put him on IR. He had a Jones fracture.
So is that forever IR, or is that
No, they're
IR?
going to try and bring him back in, I think, 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
Okay, well that's manageable.
For those that aren't familiar, Jones fracture is the same one that Julio Jones had with his foot years ago.
Oh, so they call that the Jones fracture now.
Yeah.
That's nice to have something named after you. Tommy John, Julio Jones. That's great.
I agree,
Good
Lance.
for him.
Cam said Cam's more worried about putting fancy clothes on than about football.
Yeah, I don't know, Lance. I just feel like there's something missing in the intangibles with Cam. And I know that we've had conversations about other quarterbacks before. I think there was a time when we talked about Eli Manning, and now Eli Manning's got 2 rings on, but I just don't have a good feeling about Cam Newton's intangibles and about his leadership and about his resiliency. So I'm really curious, where the Carolina Panthers, the Bills, it's a shame because they had the best running game in the NFL last year, but they have nothing else. They have absolutely nothing else, and that is such a tremendous handicap. and they lost their tackling machine. What was his name again?
Zach Brown.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel bad for the Bills, but they're going to lose a lot of games like this. Be ready for this 9-3, this baseball stuff.
I agree with you too, Lance. He said he thinks that most defenses have figured out what Cam likes to do now.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's absolutely true. And I think when you and I think that what they really need to do is to maybe come up with a little more creative packages, because it seems to me that his receivers, their route trees are limited to like 2 or 3 routes. And I think their offense needs to get a little more complex and not lean on athleticism so much. I'm not just talking about Cam. I'm talking about the receivers too. I think you need to have a route tree that has like 5 or 6 different routes on it instead of 2 or 3 in this day and age.
I agree. Before we go on to the next game, Chris in our chat said Phil Dawson is the kicker for Arizona.
Thank you very much. I made a joke with you Sunday about him like being 58 years old.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, the old man.
Moving on, we have the Raiders beating up on the Jets 45-20.
Now, go back and you can go back. It's funny. You could go back and play the audio from our show last week. And I mockingly, when we brought up the picks for this game, I sarcastically said, Raiders 48-17. I don't even want to talk about this game.
Almost.
For once, they actually, for once they actually stomped another team to death, and I loved it. But no, I mean, the offense was a behemoth. Everything, I mean, we know the Jets are no good. I admire Luke McCown. He's a very gutsy player, but we can just kind of see how the Jets have dismantled, the every quality bit of their roster. And like as a guy my age looking back at some of the Jets teams from back in the day, it's really sad to see what they're going through now.
Because I can't tell you, honestly, in my lifetime, Adam, maybe a handful of years that the Jets were like legitimate contenders. The one that comes right off the top of my head is when Parcells was there for a cup of coffee.
Right.
In the late 90s. And then when Sanchez was there for those couple years where they got to like back-to-back AFC title games.
Yeah, and think looking back how amazing it is that they actually got, knowing what you know now about Sanchez, that they actually got to those championship games.
Unheard of.
Yeah, and then the unfulfilled promise of Rex Ryan being there and all the quarterbacks that they went through. But no, you're right. In your lifetime, and honestly, if you even go back a generation beyond that, in most of my lifetime, it's been like I'm living off the myth of Joe Namath. I mean, there's not much going on throughout the late 70s and early with Ken O'Brien and Kenny Eason, and I mean, Freeman McNeil and all that. And I mean, some talented players, but playoff teams, championships, nope. I mean, we're all looking back to Namath wagging that finger, waiting for it's like waiting for Armageddon, man. It's a pipe dream, But yeah, Raiders offense clicking, and I think what's good. A great offense helps your defense. So I think if the Raiders can get those kind of leads, I think it'll make their defense better. Kind of like the Rams that year that Warner and them won the Super Bowl. They had like the 6th ranked defense, and it really wasn't a 6th ranked defense, but they got so far ahead of everybody that it made their offense one-dimensional. You know what I mean? No,
I agree with you.
Yeah, so that was just a lopsided affair. That was a super possible Super Bowl contender against a team that's pretty much just got to throw their whole organization into a blender and be done with it.
I agree. All right, next we have the Dolphins beating the Chargers 19-17.
I'll tell you what really surprised me about this game was that neither quarterback threw an interception.
Interesting.
Both quarterbacks had very economical, high percentage. I think combined they threw 14 incompletions. I think Cutler was something like 24 for 30, and Rivers was like 31 out of 39. So they both had clean, very high efficiency games. The difference was that in the fourth quarter, Miami could move the ball, and they kicked a couple field goals, and San Diego could not. And I think that's because Miami could run the ball. Ajayi, he had like 140 yards.
Yeah.
And San Diego, they didn't put together 40 yards rushing as a team. So it's going to be interesting if Miami can stop the run like that consistently and run the ball with Ajayi and not ask too much of Cutler. I'm just kind of curious how many of these kind of wins they can grab, depending on how brutal the schedule is. I mean, they're not going to beat New England, I don't think. Although we're uncertain about New England's defense right now. But,
right, and then what I was going to say is I felt bad for that poor rookie kicker again. I think his name's like Sue or something like that.
Yeah, the South Korean kid, and he was one of the best kickers in the country. I mean, it's a shame because this kid does not come from nowhere. He played for Georgia Southern and
he's like 30, one of the best kickers in college football last year.
Yeah, he won their I forget what kicker it's named after, but he won the college award for best kicker. He was like 31 out of 35 in his senior season. Yeah, and they say that he's got a little problem in his mechanics. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what it is, but they were saying that when Denver froze him and blocked a second kick, that one of Denver's coaches actually noticed a little bugaboo in his mechanics. So I don't know if they're going to work on that, but
so he might have to change it up a little bit.
He might have to work on it, but I hope he gets it cleaned up because he's a good. I hate to see guys go through those dark times when they just feel like, oh, I just can't do my job. I hope he gets it, even though he's a Charger. I can forgive him that long enough to hope he gets it cleaned up.
All right, next, and you're right, Adam. I did find the other clunker. It's Seattle beating the 49ers 12-9.
You see that? There was another soccer game hidden in there. I guess it looks like San Francisco is playing really hard, but they just can't quite drag it out long enough to beat teams. I noticed that Carlos Hyde ran for like 124 yards. I've seen some footage of him. He's running really hard. And I think if San Francisco sticks with him and keeps the ball out of Hoyer's hands, as much as possible, I think that they will do well to do that. Because I've always appreciated Hyde's work ethic. He is a very hard-nosed, hard-running back. And I think Garcon is good too. The problem is just that eventually in this league, you got to make plays in the passing game to win games. But it was impressive how they kind of squeezed down on Russell Wilson. He threw the ball like 39 times, didn't even get 200 yards.
No, yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, so I just ended up being a battle of field goals. There's not much I can really say interesting about it.
After the first 2 weeks, Hyde is leading the league in rushing.
Very interesting, Lance. And I like his running style. He always delivers the blow at the end of his runs. He doesn't let the other guy hit him. He hits the guy. I like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, next we have the Redskins hanging on to beat the L.A. Rams 27-20.
Huh. No Jack Youngblood. He was out with a broken leg. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this game last week, and we kind of figured that this was a winnable road game for the Skins. And even though Cousins did some of what we expected, he got that last drive and he threw the winning touchdown to Grant. One thing I like about the Redskins is the way the running game with Thompson is developing right now. What do you think?
No, I agree with you.
What are your thoughts about the Rams, though? You see any signs, any positive signs?
I'm kind of taking like a wait and see approach with them because I think Goff's been better the first couple weeks, but I want to see them start playing some teams that have legitimate like defenses that are going to be in the top half of the league.
Right, because we're still looking for him to play a legitimate pass rush, number one.
Yep.
And a legitimate takeaway secondary, number two.
Yeah.
But I have to say
but what I've seen so far looks good.
He stands in there with confidence, and I mean he can't help. He can't help. He
didn't have that last year.
No, he looked completely lost. I have to say that he would not have looked confident anywhere on a practice field, in a schoolyard, nowhere. You know.
Yeah.
So I give him that. He's standing tall. It looks like he knows what he's doing before he does it. That alone is growth for him. But we really do need to see him against one of the better defenses. But the hurly-gurly man is reaping him benefits. And they still have that ferocious, they still have a ferocious front four and a stingy backfield that likes to take the ball away. So, they're not going to be they're not going to be a W. Teams are not going to be able to look, run down their schedule and say, Rams, we got that one. No, I think the Rams are going to play people hard. I think they're going to be a tough win.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Here's a stat before we move on to the next one that Lance just put up. He said the USC game had more people watching that game than both the LA home teams combined.
Begs the question, why?
Because of the fucking product they're putting out.
Oh, mercy.
Not to be cruel or anything to both of those fans, but...
Well, no, I mean...
if you put out a good product, people are going to come.
No, I hear you. Well, my comment was more of a jab at USC than it was...
Oh, I know.
A defense of the two pro teams.
All right, next we have... And this was more of a shocking game to me. Not so much the game itself, but the result. Denver just... pummeling Dallas 42-17.
Yeah. I will admit that I was one of those people who thought that Dallas was, ready to go on the road and get a reasonably quality win, like this past Sunday, and I really do feel like they quit. I not just Elliott either. I really do feel like they got discouraged and they quit sometime halfway through the third quarter, maybe.
Yeah.
And like we were talking before you went live on the air, I didn't think the lead was so overwhelming so early that they had to stop running the ball.
Because to me, and I know Lance will agree with me when I say, that's who the Cowboys are. You run the ball with that mammoth line that they have with Zeke, and it sets everything else up.
I mean, if you're down 2 scores in the second quarter, you run the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a team that runs the ball first, you run the ball. I mean, I don't understand. And I really think that teams, coordinators, coaches, I think everybody gets a little antsy and impatient. And
they panic.
I understand. Yeah, and I understand that his yard, look at his numbers. They were absolute crapo. I totally understand that. But my point is, my point is this. Until that game until Denver had 35, I'm going to say this, until Denver had 35, you could have continued to mix run and pass.
I agree.
Before that, when Denver still had 28, run, pass, run, pass. I'm sorry, there's not much time. Listen, when the momentum changes, things happen very fast in football. you know, midway through the third quarter, you have time to score 3 times. Yes, you do.
Yeah,
and nobody will ever tell me that you don't.
Especially when you have as big of a offensive line as they have, because they got some big boys up there, and Elliott's a big boy. You know, you're going to eventually wear some defenses out. We both seen it. You just got to, you know, stick with it and be honest. Where you're going 50-50, you know what I mean? Run pass like we were talking about. As Skype wants to fail on Adam again. Yeah, but I absolutely agree with that. I think the interception that Dak threw that eventually was returned for a pick 6 was all on Dez Bryant. I don't blame Dak for that interception. It looked like Dez Bryant completely gave up on that play where it was just like, what in God's name are you doing? Like, I'm starting to believe that the Dallas Cowboys are better off without Dez Bryant. I really do, because they seem to play better as a team without him. But that's just my opinion. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So yeah, I don't. You know, you can't tell me that you don't have time to score those amount of, you know, 3 times. When you're working in the third quarter, you still have time to run your offense.
No, I agree.
That's all I was saying.
I was just saying real quick about, I think that Dallas is better off without Dez Bryant. I think they play better without him.
Did you notice that Akeem Talib didn't even bother following him across the field?
Yeah, you were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, he didn't even bother shadowing him. Because why does that not happen? Because the other team doesn't think you're that dangerous. Exactly. Doesn't think you're worth it.
All right, moving along. The Sunday night game, we have Atlanta winning in their new house against Green Bay, 34-23.
Yeah, this isn't a surprise. Green Bay on the road to Atlanta has been...
It's been a house of horrors for them.
It has. I mean, Rodgers hasn't played well, and I think the way that, you know, Green Bay has not been able to put together a defense that is matched up with Atlanta's passing game, not for a very long time. So this is a brutal mismatch. If Green Bay had a pass rush like Atlanta's, that would be fascinating.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because they made no like real additions in the offseason to make you believe that, like, oh, the defense is going to be fixed now.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of the guys they drafted look like they're doing some good things. There was a corner that got pressed into service in that game who was making some short tackles, and that was a good sign. But, yeah, I mean, to your point, we were talking after the Seattle game, like, well, how much of this is just how much Green Bay hates Seattle with a passion and Seattle's offensive struggles, or they're still trying to put together an O-line and, you know, things of this nature. And after watching the Atlanta game, you know, the Seattle Green Bay game looks a little bit more like an aberration. And you're right. I mean, on paper, I don't see the additions that make you say, okay, well, there's a piece to the puzzle that makes me think they're going to jump to the next level.
Exactly.
I mean, Neal plays hard, Perry plays hard, but those guys are already part of the equation.
No, I agree. All right, and the last game of the week, Monday night, we saw the Lions beat up on the Giants 24-10.
And we both picked Detroit to win this game on the road, only because we both said until the Giants show that their offense is something other than raw sewage, it's going to be very difficult to pick them to win a game. And once again, they showed that their offensive line is horrible. Their running game is horrible. They drop passes. They their play calling is absolutely head scratchingly absurd. And I mean, it's a shame because their defense, works really hard and tries to keep them in games. But, as with any unbalanced team like this, like after about 2.5 to 3 quarters, it kind of starts to wear down a little bit.
No, I agree.
But I like this Detroit defense that I see now. They're flying to the ball. They're creating turnovers. They have a really good mixture, the way they mix and move around their defensive linemen, and they get pressure from all different areas, from several different players. But this is a Detroit defense that I mean, since way back when they had like Jerry Ball and Spielman and Kofor, it's probably back in the 90s, I guess. There hasn't been a Detroit defense like this. It's an exciting defense, an opportunistic defense.
Yes.
And they're fun to watch on both sides of the ball now.
No, I completely agree with you. I think and Stafford looks like he's really come of age.
He looks like he's really figured things out to a new, like, intellectual quarterbacking level, doesn't he?
Yeah, I agree with you. All right.
Do you think they could take that division real quick?
It's possible, considering they have a better defense, I think, right now than Green Bay.
Yeah, because I was kind of giving Green Bay the edge because of the quarterback, but
They're starting they're close now. They're closer than you would have thought.
I'm starting to see a picture emerge of a more complete team, but yeah, it's the Lions. You never know.
Exactly. All right. Before we get out of here, we're going to pick the upcoming Week 3 set of games. We have another barn burner this coming Thursday. The LA Rams at the San Francisco 49ers.
I think that the Niners' tenacious play pays off this week, and they win a gut-wrenching 15-12 type affair.
I'll actually go with the Rams because of their defense, and they can kind of run the ball, and I think I trust Goff more than I do Hoyer.
I'm not going to say I trust Hoyer. I don't trust Hoyer, period. Yeah,
here's one for you. I didn't know this was happening till Dean mentioned it, and then when I pulled up the Week 3, we actually have our first 9:30 in the morning game.
Yes, we do.
And it's on Yahoo. It's the Ravens and the Jaguars.
Boy, what did
the Jaguars do to piss somebody off?
Well, they played like crap. My question is what did England do to keep getting the Jaguars and the Dolphins? My God.
Yeah, that too.
Are relations between the U.S. and England that bad? Keep giving them crap games? Yeah, come on, give them, Raiders, Steelers or something. Anyway, let's see. I'm going to pick the Jaguars to lose that game.
I agree with you. I'm going to take the Ravens because I think Bortles will be Blake Bortles.
Yes, the British fans will get to see what an interception is.
No, they've seen it plenty because he's been over there quite a bit.
I'm sure they're quite familiar with his antics, yeah.
All right, next we have the Steelers at the Bears.
Your friend the Steelers will love this. I'm pretty sure the Steelers are going to cover this one on the road. Yeah. Steelers by many, many touchdowns on the road.
Yeah. Next, we have Denver traveling to Buffalo.
Wow. Interesting. Who can Buffalo do this? I would say that after such an emotional win, Denver would be in trouble. The problem is Denver just can't score points, and their quarterback situation is awful.
Oh, you mean the Bills?
I'm sorry. The Bills' quarterback situation is just awful. They can't score points. and Denver's going to get turnovers from. So
I would say they could do this if it was in like late November, early December with the cold weather.
If they just had a little bit more scoring, yeah, maybe the weather. But I'm going to take Denver. I
agree with you. I'm taking Denver too.
Can't see Denver blowing that.
All right, next we have the Saints traveling to Carolina.
This is a weird game. You know, these two teams like to kind of spoil things for each other. And even though the Saints have not played well, I don't see offense coming from Carolina. I don't know. I'm not crazy about their offensive energy. So here's a bit of a weird prediction. I think the Saints are going to go in there, and I think they're going to steal one on the road over Carolina.
I'll take Carolina just for the fact of their offense might not look the greatest, but the Saints' defense looks absolutely god-awful.
That's always a good helping hand to a struggling offense.
Yeah, when you're facing a defense like that, so I'll go Carolina. Next, we have Tampa traveling to Minnesota.
Do we have any idea who's playing quarterback for Minnesota?
I believe Bradford will be.
All right. On the strength of Bradford playing, I'm going to go ahead and take Minnesota.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. The reason being Tampa Bay's a young team. They're still kind of trying to figure stuff out. The Vikings are more of a veteran-savvy team, I guess you would call it. So
yeah, I agree. And I think Minnesota's defense can get to Winston a little bit, too.
Yeah. All right, here's a good one for you. The Browns at the Colts.
God. Oh, my goodness gracious.
I'm predicting a tie.
I'm predicting television sets being hurled out of people's windows if that's the only game they can get. I'll take the Browns. I think the Browns just are a little fundamentally better right now.
Yeah, Lance said 0-0 tie.
Yeah, after a full overtime. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
I actually agree with you. I'll go with the Browns because at least I don't want to say the Colts aren't playing with heart, but the Browns kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I think the Browns have a little more character right now.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have Miami at the Jets.
I like the formula that Miami played San Diego with, and the Jets are kind of a mess now. So I'm going to go with Miami.
Yeah, I agree with that too. The Jets look like they're going to go 1-15 or maybe even 0-16.
The Kotite era part 2.
Yeah, here's an interesting one.
Okay.
Atlanta travels to Detroit.
Oh boy, that is an interesting one, and because I like their running game and their pass rush a little better, I'll take Atlanta.
Yeah, and because they kind of know how to win and grind out tough games. They didn't for a while, but it seems like they're starting to figure it out.
Yeah, but you know what else is kind of funny about this game? It's the team that broke the record for most comeback wins against the team that blew the most legendary comeback game in history.
Yeah, that's true.
So who the hell knows? But no, I got to go with the Falcons.
Right. Here you go. We have Houston traveling to New England.
New England. I know New England's defense needs a lot of work, but Deshaun Watson's not ready for.
Yeah, they're not Bill ready.
Belichick.
I think Houston's defense will keep them in it, but eventually they'll pull away. New England.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. Next, we have the Giants traveling to Philadelphia.
I just can't do it. I can't pick the Giants to win a game until they stop sucking so bad. Eagles.
Yeah, I really think, and I told you this privately off air, the Eagles' front seven is going to give that Giants' offensive line fits.
Yep, you know what I said about your buddy number 91.
Yes, he's gonna be in the backfield all day,
all night. He's gonna be sitting there. He's gonna be taking the snap from center.
That's very possible. All right, next we have Seattle traveling to Tennessee.
I'll tell you, I don't like the Seattle's offensive rhythm right now.
Nope.
I don't like their offensive line. I think they're struggling to figure out what to do in the running game. I noticed that in the game against the Niners, that this Carson kid had like 20-some carries and Procise had none, but he had a couple receptions. So I think they're still doing a lot of tinkering offensively. And I think that being on the road to 1 o'clock set, it's in Tennessee, right?
Yeah, but it's a 4:05 game.
Oh, is it? It's a 4:05 in Tennessee. I think that might actually help Seattle a little bit. I think in the end, I think their defense will catapult them in this game, but I would expect another mucky, low-scoring game here probably.
I'm going to take the Titans just from what I've seen with them offensively. I think they might have enough to get by.
That's interesting.
And because their defense has actually been playing hard.
Yeah, they do have they got a good defense. Yeah, that's true.
All right, next we have Kansas City going on the road to the Chargers.
Many times when a team comes off of back-to-back wins to open a season, they will go on the road and blow a game that they should win. This is not one of those games, the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going with the Chiefs. Oh, Lance just said something interesting, real quick sidetrack. He heard that Carson has won the #1 running back spot in Seattle.
Yeah, I saw that also. And be interesting to see if he actually keeps it for a while, because that running game has been kind of been in flux.
Because I heard they're going to probably cut Eddie Lacy.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's what I was reading.
Giants.
Yeah.
Giants need a running back that we can identify by name.
All right, here's our potential national game that we're going to be punished with on Sunday.
Oh boy.
Cincinnati traveling to Green Bay.
Well, this is Green. Yeah, it is, and it's punishment. Oh, Cincinnati. Green Bay is the kind of defense that Cincinnati could maybe move the ball against pretty well. The problem is Cincinnati is kind of reminding me of the Giants in that they are so putrid offensively right now that until they show me that they can move the ball and score touchdowns, it's extremely difficult for me to pick them to win a game, particularly on the road against the Packers. So I'm going to have to take the Packers.
I agree with that because I think Aaron Rodgers and company will figure it out, because I feel Andy Dalton will probably give them a couple extra chances.
Yeah, I know we don't like them, but let's see. Cincinnati and the Giants at 0-3. That's pretty weird.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, next we have this, the Sunday night game where Oakland travels to the Redskins.
I've been thinking about this game a lot, and as much as it hurts me to say it, I think that the Redskins are probably going to win this game, very close game that is going to be won by the Redskins.
I'll take the Raiders.
Please do, and I hope you're right.
I don't know. There's just something about the Redskins I don't trust.
I don't trust Cousins either, but my problem right now is I don't like the Raiders' pass rush, and I certainly don't like their secondary. And even though Cousins makes a lot of mistakes, I think this is the kind of defense that he could flourish against, especially with play action if they get Thompson going on the ground. So I think it could be a shootout. It could be a really fun game to watch. The question is, which quarterback will make the mistake?
Yeah.
I guess I'm just kind of banking on Carr to make the mistake on the road, maybe. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But I'm going to say the Redskins, they need this pretty badly, too. They need a home win after losing at home to the Eagles. So let's see what happens.
All right. And Monday night, we have Dallas traveling to Arizona.
I think you had mentioned before the show that you were pretty sure that Dallas was going to be okay in this game.
As much as I would like to say Arizona could win or potentially win, I have no faith in them to do so.
You see, I'm extremely concerned about Dallas after what I saw Sunday. Not just in terms of all the injuries, and I don't really, I'm not too worried about the running game. I mean, that was one game. They can get back to pounding the rock, I'm sure. But in terms of their defense and in terms of their overall mental toughness, I'm not sure what kind of scars this game is going to leave on them. And now they have to play another game on the road out west. I'm going to cautiously take the Cowboys to win this. But I will tell you, if they lose this game, you are really going to see sparks flying in the Dallas media. I wouldn't be shocked if they lost it, but I expect that they will win it. Let me put it that way.
I got you. I really believe Dallas will win. The reason being Carson Palmer, in my opinion, will probably throw at least one interception. I mean, and that's to a not very good Dallas defense right now, but he seems to always make a mistake when in the worst possible time lately.
Yeah, he does. But you know what? That Dallas defense is one of those defenses that makes those kind of quarterbacks look better than they really are, i.e. Trevor Siemian.
Yeah, that's
you know
true.
What I mean? And I mean, and what is that Carolina? What is that Arizona secondary going to do to Dak Prescott?
That's very true.
I'm just really interested to see how. Yeah, I'm just interested to see how this is going to pan out in terms of, like what you said, the two quarterbacks, because you're right about what Palmer does, but is the fact that he's playing that demolished Cowboy defense, is that going to is he going to play on another level?
What you said about Prescott, because he's got to worry about Honey Badger.
Yeah, he got, what's the other guy back there who's real good? 21.
Patrick Peterson.
Is it Peterson? Yeah, Peterson. And, they still got some good guys on the front seven there. I mean, that defense is ferocious. Yeah. What's the Mr. Magoo's defenses? They always are pretty nasty.
I'm just going to lean towards Dallas in this one.
Yeah, I'm cautiously picking Dallas in this one.
All right, well, there you have it. We're going to get out of here for tonight. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, give it a thumbs up, all that good stuff. And we'll see you back next week. Have a good night, everybody.